it okay? Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yeah, perfectly fine.
So I will just start my deck. Sorry. I use Gitpod for everything, even for the slide. Open preview. So one cloud IDE to hold them all. I will try to demonstrate my use of Civo and Gitpod in less than 15 minutes. So, hello everybody. Thank you to host me. My name is Philippe Charrière. As you can hear, I'm French. You can follow me on Twitter with the strange handle Kigorg or Kig on GitLab, and I have the same on GitHub. I am a technical account manager at GitLab, and a TAM is like the Alfred of Batman, but my Batman are my customers. Some fun fact. So you can hear that my English is special. You will see that I'm a Gitpod addict, and my Kubernetes skills are terrible, a lot worse than my English. And in fact, this is my main problem, because at GitLab we provide a kind of integration between Kubernetes and GitLab. And sometimes I have to do some demonstration about how I can deploy easily application from GitLab CI to a Kubernetes cluster. And it was, some months ago, it was very difficult for me. But, sorry, I discovered Civo, and Civo saved me, because I have nothing to install, no DNS problem. And honestly, Key3s is my favorite Kubernetes distribution. So when I saw that a company did Key3s as a service, I was obliged to test, and I found in love almost since the beginning. And the topic of my talk is that I do everything with Gitpod. So I use it for months, even to manage my servers or my clusters. So today I will try, I hope the gods of the demo will be with me, I will try from Gitpod to create a Civo cluster, to set up the Kubernetes integration with this cluster and GitLab. And I will use cluster management project template. We provide it as GitLab, but I design one to work smoothly with Civo cluster. And if everything will be okay, I will just deploy a web application on Civo with GitLab CI. So I will stop the deck. I don't need anymore the project. And I will share all the source code at the end. No, I started my cluster management project, but if I go on GitLab, I have a group, Civo online meetup, and my cluster management project. So it's a template I use for all my demonstration, and I can reuse it on different group or project. I add only two shell scripts, one using the Civo CLI to create the cluster, and the other to create the GitLab service account and to get the certificate and the access token to the cluster. It is a Gitpod project. So I have a Docker file, or a .github Docker file, sorry. I use it to install key 9s, sorry, and the kubectl CLI. And with the .gitpod.yaml, I load the Docker file, and then I install the Civo CLI. So I have everything to create and manage my cluster. So I will just start my first script. So you have to wait some minutes, but it's very, very quick and fast to provision a cluster on Civo. If I go on my Civo dashboard, you see that it's creating the cluster. I return on my project. I just use, in fact, .env file for the settings of the cluster, the size and the number of nodes, for example, and the region. The Civo API key is on my Gitpod profile. So even if I commit the project, nobody can access to my credentials, so it's very useful. We need just some second more. So with the CLI, in fact, I add the key and I create the cluster. And after I will get the Kubernetes file config, and then I will be able to connect to the cluster from the terminal of Gitpod. I think it will be okay. Yes. So automatically my script copied the config file here. So now I can generate the certificate, the access token, and create the GitLab service account YAML. It is a file that you can find in the documentation of GitLab. So the certificate is created, the token too. So now it's time for me to go again to GitLab. I need the URL of the API. I go in my group. I select the Kubernetes menu. I will integrate a cluster with certificate. I will name it Panda. I use the API URL. I do it with the UI, but you can do with Nchart if you prefer, of course. So I need the certificate. The token. And I will add my Kubernetes cluster. Once the integration is set up, I go to the advanced setting and I select my Civo cluster management project. So it becomes the project to manage my cluster for the group. And I save the change. I just check that in the settings of the CI/CD, for the moment, I will use the share runner. I need the token registration for the CI/CD. I return in my project. We have the template project provided by GitLab give all the charts needed to install application. I just need to install the GitLab Runner on Kubernetes. So I will change the value. I just need to copy my token. I use gitlab.com, but of course you can do this with a GitLab on-premise instance. And after, I have a gitlab-ci.yaml file that will, once I will commit my change, that will trigger the CI to install the runner on the cluster. So I will just commit my change. I will launch KNIS to look at my cluster. And if I go to my project, this is one, you see that a pipeline, a CI pipeline is created. And I have a problem, just, it's the demo effect. Winners. Okay, I think it should be better. Yes. So the first job is to test if everything is okay and if the cluster is compliant to install the different application. So right now the pipeline is not executed on the cluster but with the share runner of GitLab. And the deploy job will deploy the Kubernetes executor or the Kubernetes runner on my cluster. So we need to wait. Normally on the Kubernetes side, we should see a new pod. Yes. So it's installing the GitLab Runner. Don't need this project. So I think it's okay. Yes. Everything is okay on the cluster side. If I go in the CI settings of group again, you can see that I have my GitLab Runner executor on Kubernetes, so I don't need anymore the share runners. I just will change some settings. I don't want to have to put some tags to execute my job, so I will check this checkbox. I save the change. And now for all the projects of the Civo Online Meetup group, I can use the cluster, sorry for the noise. I can use the cluster to run my pipeline and to deploy application. So for example, I have a project demo. I will just check that I'm using the appropriate runners. Yes, this is this one. It's a very simple project. It's a Fastify application. So Fastify is like Express.js, but it's the same thing. And I have a GitLab CI YAML file. It's a little bit complicated because I use it for a demonstration for my customer. But I will just build my HTML file. I will build a Docker image, and then after I will deploy the Docker image to host the web app on the application, on the cluster, sorry. For that, I need to change something in the code. Up. Public index. So I commit on master. It's not a good practice, but it's for the demonstration. So it will trigger a new pipeline. And this pipeline, this time, will run on the Kubernetes cluster. So we need to wait some seconds. Sometimes there is a little bit delay on gitlab.com. So be patient. Yes, it started. So here we see that we used this time the Kubernetes executor. And on the GitLab side, you can see that a new pod runner is started. In fact, the GitLab Runner on Kubernetes is a kind of a scalable GitLab Runner. So the executor will provision or will pop up all the pod it need to run the pipeline. So the first job is okay. So now it will build the Docker image. Yes, yes, yes. So it started again. And after the Docker image, the next job will be used to deploy the web app on the cluster. So I think in 1 or 2 minutes, it will be okay. The main advantage to use Gitpod to do that is that I can just have a workspace already usable in some seconds, in fact, and it's very useful. So the build is terminated, so soon we will have the deployment. I use the container registry of GitLab to host my Docker image, but you can use what you want. CI/CD pipeline. And I will deploy my web application on 3 pods. So the job is running. Okay, and I have a bug. Demo effect again. I think it deployed one pod. I will test a retry. We just see deployment. If I go in the environment deployment, yeah, it don't deploy anything. But at least you see that the runner is working. Probably I did a mistake in my web application. I will try a last time. Deployment, the ingress web is invalid webmaster lowercase. Oh yes, I know. I forgot something. I'm silly. Settings Kubernetes on scope. I need a base domain, so I will use the API of the cluster. nip.io. And I try a last time. So CI pipeline. I don't know if running the last job will be enough. Yes, the YAML file finally has no URL for the ingress, so it was impossible to deploy the pod correctly. So I'm crossing my fingers. It seems better. So this time you see that I have my 3 pods, except the old one. If I go on the deployment environment, I have my pod deploy, and normally I have my web application deployed. So you see, except the issue on the demo, you see that it's very easy to create a Kubernetes cluster on Civo, and I don't need anything on my laptop except a browser. Sometimes I use only my iPad to do this, and it's very easy. So I'm done with the demonstration.